young girl called Sophie who make hats. She lives in the land of Ingery, where everything goes by fairy tale rules. After work, she went to the town to visit her sister. On her way, she gets stopped by two soldiers who flirt with her, but she is saved by this mysterious man called Howl. He confesses to her that he had been followed. This mysterious shadowy figurines follow them. Now Howl, along with Sophie, jumps high up in the air before the creatures got to them. He asks her to walk on the air, leading her to the destination, which is her sister's shop. Howl leaves after dropping her off to deal with the creatures. Sophie is still in shock about her encounter with him. After spending some time with her sister, she heads back. Back at the hat shop, she had been followed by the Witch of the Waste, who was behind the shadowy creatures. Now, when Sophie asks her to show herself out, she leaves casting a spell on the girl. This turns her into a weak old woman. The witch cursed her because she was seen with the Howl. Sophie couldn't believe her eyes, and she so badly wanted to believe that all of it was a dream. But soon she accepts the fact that she is now an old woman. She decides to not stay in the shop any longer, but to leave and venture out, to look for a way to reverse the curse. She heads towards the Folding Valley where the witches and wizards reside. After resting for a while, she saw this stick, struck in the bushes. Sophie thought that she could use it as a walking cane, but it turns out to be a scarecrow, and a magical one too. As she continues on the journey in a bad weather, the scarecrow follows as well. When she gets tired, he gives her a cane which was hanging on his hand. Now she thanks him and asks to bring her a house so she can rest. He leaves and Sophie continued to climb, and after a while, the scarecrow brings the Howl's castle to her. Having no other option, she opens the door to the moving castle and gets inside after thanking the scarecrow. She walks in and sits in front of the fireplace. Now the fire started talking to her, telling her that he is called Calcifer, the fire demon. The demon offers a deal with her that he will remove her curse if she breaks the spell that chains him to the place. Apparently the demon is the one who is moving the house around. The next day she saw a boy called Markle, who is also living in the house. Sophie, excited by what the house can do, keeps rotating the doorknob, teleporting the house to different places. Soon later, Howl shows up, and Sophie tells him that she has hired herself as the cleaning lady of the house. He figures out that she is the young girl who he helped in the street, and that she is now under the spell of the Witch of the Waste. Howl turns into a bird creature taking down warships in an unknown world, when he is called upon by the king to fight in the war. However, he chooses to send Sophie to the king in the guise of his mother to inform that he is too cowardly to fight. He gives her an enchanted ring and follows her in disguise. She head towards the castle, and on the way she saw the Witch of the Waste, who was also there to meet the king. They meet the head sorceress of the king, now the sorceress Suleiman. She drains the power of the Witch of the Waste, reverting her back to her real age as an old woman. The sorceress threatens Sophie that Howl will meet the same fate as the witch if he does not fight for the king. Now Howl got there in a disguise to save Sophie, but the sorceress saw through him, and she tries to take away his power, as it was evident that he wouldn't fight for the king. Just as he was about to transform, Sophie warns him about Suleiman, and they barely escape her trap. With Howl distracting their pursuers with an illusion, Sophie and the Witch of the Waste, along with the dog, headed towards Howl's castle, with Calcifer leading the way. They crash lands into the Howl's castle. Later, Sophie learns that Howl's life is somehow connected to that of Calcifer's, and that he has been changing into this bird form to thwart both sides in the conflict, but each transition makes it harder for him to revert to his human form. Howl finally returns home. By looking at the scarecrow, he was able to tell that he was also under a spell, not wanting the sorceress to catch up with them. Howl draws a magic circle and steps inside with Calcifer, using both their magic combined, remaking the castle just as Sophie's actual house. As a gift to her, Howl takes her to this beautiful place, surrounded fully by flowers. But soon, though, Suleiman's cronies track them down. He gets her back in the castle to safety and leaves. The sorceress gets Sophie's mother to come to her daughter and bug the Howl's castle, but the old witch found the peeping bug and feeds it to Calcifer, which makes him sick, and he goes out. Now they are under attack, but Howl got to them, kept Calcifer going. He must go now to put an end to the war. Sophie, knowing that as long as they stay in the castle, Howl will keep on fighting to protect them. So she gets everyone to move out of the house, taking Calcifer as well with her, resulting in the collapse of the moving castle. She gets inside the wreckage of the castle with Calcifer and puts some damp wood on him. Calcifer takes some of Sophie's hair and consumes it, which gave him the power to rebuild the castle and keep it going. But now the old witch takes him off of the fireplace. Calcifer loses control of the castle, and as the granny didn't let go of him, Sophie was forced to pour water to save the granny. As Calcifer go out, the rest of the castle breaks into two, and Sophie with the dog get separated from the rest, falling into a gap between the rocks. In the wreckage, following the charmed ring, Sophie enters through what seems to be a portal which leads her to Howl's past. She saw him catching a falling star, which apparently is Calcifer, and gives him his heart. Sophie gets sucked out from there into the present where she sees Howl waiting for her. He takes her to the rest of them and transforms back to his human form. He is now too weak from his injuries, and Calcifer is barely holding up as well. Now Sophie takes Calcifer from the old witch and places him on Howl's chest, breaking Calcifer's spell, saving them both, and restoring Sophie to her younger self. But now the rest of the moving part of the castle falls apart, and they were saved by the Scarecrow from certain death. When Sophie kisses the Scarecrow to thank him, his curse breaks, turning him back into the prince he is. Calcifer, even though he is free now, returns and decided to stay. The war ends, and we see a completely remade Howl's castle flying off to the skies.